The Apologist Party. The Apologist Party's mission is to eliminate freeloaders from the body politic. The policy of the Apologist Party, TAP, is based on and directed towards this one end. This mission, as it progresses, builds the church and leaves behind a market free of all government regulation. Our core belief is that everyone has a right to what they create, and no one has a right to what someone else produced. It is when this principle is set aside, that gives us freeloading. The first priority of the apologists is to eliminate the state. The state is the primary source of all freeloading. The thing common to all criminals, communists, and liberals, is that they reject the doctrine of sovereign rights, the absolute, inalienable rights to the products of our minds. There is only one way to access the property of others, that is through theft. Theft takes guile or a strong man. More often, large-scale theft takes groups of aggressive men. When they are very successful at robbing people, when they have the skills and scale, they form a government. There is no difference between organized crime and the state other than scale and sophistication. But give any street corner gang enough power and people to exploit, and they would rapidly form into a basic government. The second priority is to establish the church. Our objective is to liberate the church from the regulatory apparatus of the state. In other words, our mission is to end freeloading, and as this is done, the biblical church emerges from the state as we peel away the expropriations and layers of control. The state does not just regulate the church directly, it controls the personal and business lives of the congregants. Because it impacts the congregation in so many ways, its activities generate the 10 great evils. These are unemployment, debt, poverty, inflation, pollution, waste, taxation, homelessness, war, and crime. All of these evils are the direct or indirect consequences of the state and its parasitic activities. All of these policies are implemented solely through the mechanisms of the market. The market and parasitic activity are inversely related. So long as we are reducing freeloading, we are moving towards market solutions. The program and policies of the Apologist Party is therefore simple, and its progress towards fulfillment of its platform can and is quantified. As the cost of the state declines, the market is liberated. As the market expands into the public arena, the public sphere contracts, and along with it, the 10 great evils. As apologetic gains power, the market strengthens through the establishment of churches. A church is a non-regulated charitable business that produces goods and services without the need for profits. Obviously, such an organization is absurd within the context of the socialist milieu that most people are familiar with. The Apologists Party is a political and economic opportunity for the church. A charitable institution is a not-for-profit organization. The Church of Apologetics is a not-for-profit business with a mission to build the church. The local church or charitable organization is a not-for-profit business. The totality of the businesses is a market, or the church. Growing a free business at the local level grows the church at the aggregate level. A free business is both free in the economic sense and free of regulatory oversight in the political sense. Of course, we could add that the free business model is free of corruption in the theological sense, having erased the 10 great evils. It's always an inverse relationship between good and evil and the church and the state. We cannot escape this war and choosing sides. No matter how much we think we can avoid the conflict, everything we do will help one side or the other. But how do we fight what to all intents and purposes is a civil war? There are no visible battle lines. No one is wearing a uniform or insignia. No one, or few, are even carrying a weapon. Remember, we are not fighting flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. It is the office and authorities we fight, not bodies. We are not fighting a physical fight but a spiritual one. If we have claims against the world, that is the physical assets of the world, we will have a potential clash of interests. Where there are competing interests, there will be war and crime. When we have wars and crime, there will arise states to mediate dispute, wage war, and regulate the national affairs. In other words, when there are people laying to claim what they have no right to, there will be political parties who want to exercise power and by this means gain a share of the world's assets for themselves. To control people, one must control property. When the state has the power to divest subjects of their assets and freedom, then they can maintain order. But there is no such thing as an uncontested resource. Even in the best of times, the government will claim it has more power over the nation's assets than the people believe. Even the disputes over free speech come down to the state claiming it has more control over the nation's airways and public spaces than the people wish to give it. Free speech is just another battle over property rights. The question always is, whose property, whose rights? It's an ongoing argument because the solution is not available to either party. Neither has the claim they think they have, thus neither has the rights it claims it has. The left wants more government to solve social problems. Its view is that the entire world is owned equally by all persons or is not owned by anyone, and so is divided according to natural law, or the law of the jungle. In the left's view of things, might makes right and the end justifies the means. The right goes straight to the end game and embraces the law of the jungle from the beginning. The strong win and the weak are shoved aside. They call it the free market, but the right never actually advocates for the end of the state. They only want the state to stop protecting the weak, and transfer all of its resources to protecting private property rights. Ultimately, the left and the right are fighting for the benevolent attention of the state. The right wants the state to focus on private property rights, and the left wants the state to focus on human rights. But humans have no rights without property, and there are no property rights if humans do not have a right to what they created. The left and right both want government regulations and interference, but of a limited and focused kind. They want the state to pander to them and deny the rights of the other side. Yet people think that the next election will make things better in a substantial way. It all depends on who you want the government to help. That determines if things will get better or worse for your group. There is only one way for things to get better, and that is through increases in specialization. If we all worry about ourselves and only work for ourselves, our output will remain limited. Limited trade of surplus goods will not produce an advanced civilization. It is the advancement in specialization that binds us together. This is no doubt a far cry from what Christians are taught to think. Perhaps God is far more practical than we give him credit for. How do we think we are bound on earth? What do you think this means? We are not glued together. We are supposed to be transformed. We are saved as the church. We are one body under Christ. What do we think this means? Being bound does not suggest it is an instantaneous transformation. Being bound suggests a process. We know that in marriage we become one. The church is both a marriage to Christ, and also a coming together as brothers and sisters as a family. We are bound together on earth so we can be saved as a family or bride. Even when Jesus is talking to the rich young man, the church thinks this is just a challenge to him. How could that be? Is God going to include a teaching that has nothing to say to us? So many Christians think this is a personal exchange between God and an individual and has nothing substantial to say to the rest of us. Christ tells the youth to sell all he has and come and follow him. Even here, Jesus is not trying to establish a personal relationship with the youth, to the exclusion of everyone else. It is a personal relationship, but ultimately it is a relationship between him and the church. When Christ is telling the youth to follow him, he means as the church. Selling what he has and joining him, Christ, is being bound on earth, so he can be bound in heaven. The youth does not just walk away from Jesus, he walks away from the union of the church. The Apologist Party is created to help those who are in the same position as the rich youth, to separate from the state. Selling all he had and giving to the poor, is not just about an individual sacrifice, it is beginning the process of being bound on earth, to the church, as the church. The Apologist Party is an arm of the church, with a way from the state to the faith. It provides a route by which one may sell all they have, and give the proceeds to the poor, without encountering risk. God sees the sparrow fall, he feeds the birds of the fields, he clothes the lilies in raiment. Divesting oneself of the insurance that is property, because you fear for the future, ought not to leave anyone exposed to the vagaries of chance. If you are concerned about your church's ability to bind you to other believers on earth, join the Apologist Party as an entry point. More details to follow.